Long ball is going to go for a touchdown. The game's over. Webster Slaughter.
Metcalf will go for the score. Unbelievable. 45-40. Run, William, run. He's got blockers in front. 5. Touchdown. Joshua Cribbs turns disaster into a score.
Sight wants it all on this one for Logan, and he is there.
Jim Brown to the 30. Jim Brown is going to go in for another touchdown.
The Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow. It is Baker Mayfield.
Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to another episode of the 1085 Gridiron. I am your host, Anthony Joki, and as always, joined by my co-host of the North Coast Sports, Jack McCurry. How you doing today, Jack?
I'm doing good, man. I'll tell you what, every time I hear that intro, it fires me up, and it knows that we're getting closer to football season in Cleveland, and I hope we can add some more Donovan and Deacon calls, good calls this season. Hopefully the Browns give us something good to cheer about.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've gotten a good Donovan call. It's been a few years, and every time we hit the end of that and I hear the hee, I just get all jacked up and ready to go. So, we're here obviously to discuss Cleveland Browns, and we have quite a bit, as always, as it seems to be every week, that we have to discuss with the Cleveland Browns. And I guess we could first start off talking about the recent episode of them on Hard Knocks that aired on Tuesday night. I think the biggest thing from that episode was Corey Coleman going into Hugh's office and pretty much demanding a trade from Hugh and the front office. And, there's probably more that went on than what we saw. What was your I think a lot of people were upset with, the compensation that we got in return, but after seeing what went down, are you surprised that trading him for pretty much a bag of footballs is what we got for him?
No, I'm not surprised at all. Everybody was talking about how good of a camp Coleman was having before the trade. And then, HBO did it up to where you've seen the struggles that Corey Coleman was having on the field, and Todd Haley riding him, trying to push him to be greater. And, I don't fault Haley for doing that. And, to see Coleman go in that office and start just complaining, and Hugh, just saying, well, if you got a problem, you go down to Haley's office, which pretty much tells me that, Hugh's obviously not in control of the entire offense anymore. It's Todd Haley's offense, and Hugh's the CEO of the football team, like he said. And then, to hear Coleman just say, well, why don't you just trade me? And then they cut to the intro, and then when they cut back in, Coleman was traded. So, I wish we could see more of the footage that went on between them two, but, the first 5 minutes of Hard Knocks was amazing. And, I give credit to HBO and NFL Films because all the film they make during their time in Cleveland, and they have to cut it up into 1 hour. I'm sure there's a lot that we haven't got to see that I wish that they probably wish that they could put on TV, but just can't because they don't have enough time.
Yeah, they could probably put out an episode every single day of what goes on over there. And, I don't know if everyone would watch it every single day, but I bet you that, if they were to put on maybe like a half hour every single day with, stuff that goes on, it could be quite compelling, over the course of 2 or 3 weeks. But, seeing that and, having some backstory to the trade, and I was a little upset with, the compensation, and, pretty much I thought that he was someone that could really contribute this year. And but after seeing, his attitude and him demanding that, I say good riddance. I mean, it's I'm disappointed that that was the decision that was ultimately made, by Corey to demand to be traded. But it is what it is. So now you're left with a receiving core. We talked about it a lot on the last episode of not having that extra guy in there, and maybe looking to bring in somebody else, i.e. Dez Bryant. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But what else from Hard Knocks really connected with you that you saw?
Tyrod Taylor, or Tyrod Taylor, which is now the correct pronunciation of his name, allegedly, seeing what he is as a leader, during practice, everybody was walking around being slow, and Tyrod, I'm just going to call him Tyrod because I don't think I'll be able to change that, but he goes up to Hugh and tells him, he's like, you can't have these dudes walking around here being slow. He goes, it's not how this football team should be run. And then you see Hugh huddled everyone together and pretty much laid down the law that crap has to stop. Seeing Tyrod as a leader, that's what we need out of our starting quarterback. If he's going to be the guy, him and Jarvis Landry, I think, have really are trying and have, to a degree, changed the culture in that facility. Between Landry's speech from episode 1 and then, having Tyrod out there as a leader and, suggesting to the head coach, like, we need to do things this way. And, Hugh leaning on him and then taking control of the situation and telling these guys that they needed to hustle. That's what you need for a good culture. You can't have guys, lollygagging out on the field and just being lazy, because that's the old Browns. And I don't think these are the old Browns now with Landry and Taylor under the fold. I think they're trying to change the culture around here, and I think they can do it. They just need everybody else to follow their lead and, quit being the lazy Browns of the past and be the Browns that aren't going to take shit from anybody from this point forward.
And I think another driving factor in that is Todd Haley, and I think we've really seen over these first 2 episodes how awesome it is to have him around on this coaching staff, because he's someone that you can tell he doesn't put up with any shit. He's not putting up with any garbage. You saw him go to Antonio Callaway, and I think that's the other big thing from this episode that we'll talk about here in a couple seconds, but. You saw him go to Antonio Callaway, see what's wrong. Just the way he talks, the way he addressed the coaching staff in that first episode with, wanting guys to practice and everything else. I really think Todd is crucial to this team. And, I think we've talked about how excited we are to see his offense with the Cleveland Browns, but I think the behind-the-scenes stuff with Haley is even more eye-opening to what a great hire Todd Haley was as offensive coordinator.
Absolutely. I think, Haley, he got somewhat of a bad rap. People are saying, if the Steelers let him go, there must be a big reason. And I know he's a unique personality, and I think the Browns have 3 unique personalities in that coaching staff with Hugh Jackson, Greg Williams, and obviously Todd Haley. But the guy has been successful everywhere he's been. When he was in Arizona with Kurt Warner, Edgerrin James, Steve Breston, Anquan Bolden, Larry Fitzgerald, was a successful offense. They went to the Super Bowl, was close to winning it. Then he goes to Kansas City, becomes a head coach, turned them around, won 10 games, went to the playoffs with Matt Castle as a quarterback. He was successful there, just not as successful as he wanted to be. Then he went to Pittsburgh and transformed their offense, made Ben Roethlisberger a better quarterback, made Antonio Brown the best wide receiver in the league, made Le'Veon Bell a dual threat at running back and one of the top running backs in football. Now he's coming to Cleveland. He's got a lot of talent on that offensive side of the football. And not only is he going to hopefully transform the offense, but like Landry and Taylor are doing, he's helping transform the culture. And, like I mentioned with Tyrod Taylor and Jarvis Landry, turning these lazy Browns into the hardworking blue-collar Browns that we deserve. We're in a blue-collar, hardworking town like Cleveland. So, and I think Haley, if all goes well with the Browns, I think he could look at a potential head coaching role if the offense turns things around, the whole team turns things around, because he's definitely going to be a big part of it in 2018.
I really don't want to play this hypothetical, but I'm just going to anyway. If for some reason things go south with you and they let him go, is Todd Haley your number 1 candidate for the head coach?
Honestly, right now he wouldn't be, but he's a guy that would be on my radar just because, like I said, he's been successful everywhere he's been. He's also been a head coach before, so he knows what it takes. And it could be a situation like a Bill Belichick, like a Pat Shurmur, where maybe his second time around, and of course Shurmur's just getting his second stint around, but maybe, he learned from his mistakes his first time around. If he gets another chance, maybe he turns into something. But, and I don't really want to talk about it this early on in the season about a potential coaching change, but Haley would be on my list. But the top guy on my list and a guy that I'm going to watch is John DeFilippo, who was formerly the offensive coordinator here and, had a good run in Philly as the quarterback coach and is now the coordinator in Minnesota. He would be my number one guy right now as potential head coaches.
Yeah, you and I were talking kind of privately about this the other day, and Flip would be my number one. I have Haley as two, and then I have Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma as my third option for head coach. So I think you and I have pretty similar lists and taste in head coaches of if things go south with you, but hopefully that's not the case, because if things go south with you, that means this season is kind of another waste, and there's no real progression towards what we want to be with this team. So hopefully that isn't the case, and we'll definitely find out. We briefly talked about it earlier, but the other biggest thing from this episode was the whole Antonio Callaway ordeal, and we learned that he did not tell the coaching staff right away, and you could see it on his face in practice because he just he looked like a ghost out there. When Haley was asking him, "Is anything going on? Is everything okay?" He looked very guilty, and you could tell that was completely weighing on him. And what was your overall viewpoint on how he dealt with it, and then eventually told everybody what actually happened? B, how the coaching staff, especially Hugh and John Dorsey, talked to him about the incident, and C, what did you think of the punishment for Hugh Jackson, making him play every single play last game?
Well, obviously when you have a situation like that, it's going to weigh heavy on you. And obviously the fact that he hadn't told the coaches and then it leaked out into the media, the pressure probably added on to him, especially when he had just been elevated to the first team following the Corey Coleman trade. For Dorsey and Hugh to sit down with him, have him explain everything, Hugh Jackson to tell him, he goes, "I'm on your side on this, but if you're lying to me," he goes, "I'm going to have your ass." And obviously they had said there's a zero tolerance policy with Callaway. But clearly they're giving him the second chance. As far as I know, he's still on the first team offense. For Hugh to make Callaway address the team like that, that's what needed to be done. Callaway needed to apologize and explain to them what happened, that he made a mistake and that he wasn't going to let the team down again. And then, for Hugh to punish Callaway by making him play the entire preseason game against the Giants, don't fault him for that at all. You're also looking at a situation. Callaway hasn't played football in a year and a half prior to last Thursday. So it was probably good for him because he needed those additional reps. And we all seen he struggled in the first half. And, usually when you're a starter, you're done after that. But, Hugh's punishment was to play him the whole game. The second half, he had a great second half, caught 4 passes, obviously had that long touchdown from Baker Mayfield. And, hopefully Callaway builds on that. And he keeps working harder, avoids staying out of trouble, and then proves to everyone that I am the guy that said that the experts said I have first round talent, and that all that baggage is left in the past, and I can prove to the Browns and to the NFL that I was worth the gamble that John Dorsey and the Browns took on me.
What did you think of Todd Haley going to Jarvis Landry and said, "I don't care what you need to do with this kid, have him live at your house"? I know Larry Fitzgerald would. What did you think of Todd Haley saying that to Jarvis Landry about Antonio Callaway?
I thought it was great. Jarvis Landry is one of the leaders of this team, and he needs to take the young guys under his wing. You know, Landry hasn't been a problem in the NFL. He's always been a guy that goes out on the field and lets his play do the talking. And he needs to have a guy Landry needs to take Callaway under his wing, put him on the right track, and show him the right way to succeed in this league, and that he doesn't need to do the things he did at Florida and in his past to have fun. He can have fun in other ways, like going out on the football field and doing what he does on the field. And there's other ways to have fun besides, you know, leading to drugs and alcohol like Callaway may have done in the past. So I don't fault Haley for doing that. Hopefully Callaway responds to everything that Landry tells him. And if all goes well, Callaway's going to be a solid talent in this league.
Yeah, I think we all see the talent that he has, especially the speed that he has. You know, like Josh Gordon, it's all off the field. If he can control and do everything correct off the field and stay out of trouble, you know, not get into situations like he did last week, I think that Callaway is somebody that could really make a difference on this team, not only on the offense but on kick return and punt return too. You know, his speed is pretty darn good, and you know, I think that you know, if he's able to get everything where it needs to be, he could be a really good player in the NFL, and the Browns could really have struck gold in the fourth round when they took him. So, you know, hopefully everything with him is fine, and you know, things could get better. You know, he doesn't get in trouble from here on out. Is there anything else from Hard Knocks that really caught your attention?
The whole Devin Cajuce little segment with him and his father and how close their relationship is. You know, his father revealing to him that he had just had a heart attack and Devin didn't know. You know, Hard Knocks try to do these feel-good stories with some of the guys that are on the roster bubble. Unfortunately, those guys end up getting cut in the end. But it's nice to see stories about some of the guys at the bottom of the roster. You get to know them a little bit. You know, episode 1, we got to meet Brogan Roback and, you know, his duties as the 4th-string quarterback and the undrafted rookie. And now you get to see Devin Cajuce, who was cut already by 2 NFL teams and is competing for a spot on the roster behind Njoku and DeValve and Darren Fells at the tight end position. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, you saw how he played that first game, really banged up with his shoulder. You know, him coming back to the huddle pretty much after every play, kind of agonizing in pain. So you could tell that, you know, those guys on the roster bubble, they don't care if their arm's falling off. They're going to compete. They're going to give it everything they have because it's really, you know, it might be the only chance they get to make an NFL team. And, you know, guys like that, you know, sometimes you probably wish you could clone that kind of work ethic from those guys that are really trying to make it, because they want it most. They want it more than the starters because they actually have to fight for everything. So, you know, sometimes you wish you could clone those guys, clone their attitudes. You know, you wish you could have a whole 53-man roster, those kinds of guys. But, you know, unfortunately, some of them don't make it. Some of them do. Hopefully, he does make it. You know, he seems like a really good guy, a really good person. So, you know, I hope that he does make it. If there's one thing to me that stuck out, I kind of like Angry Hugh Jackson. You saw him, you know, busting everybody's chops about the jogging around in practice, which is, or walking around really, which is something you really don't do in football practice. From my past experiences, you sprint to every single drill, every single rep, everything while you're standing in between those lines. So for him to get on him for that, for him to get on him in the team meeting as well, I like Angry Hugh Jackson. I don't know if that's something that can be 24/7 with him, but that's one side of Hugh that I actually like to see, and I really didn't know existed. So I really think that Angry Hugh Jackson can actually be a benefit to this football team.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's nice to see him with some fire, but like part of me wants to think that that's part of the Hard Knocks thing. Like, he's doing that for the cameras. And sometimes I think that Greg Williams does that too. I mean, I know that those guys, Greg Williams is fiery and he's yelling all the time, and you can hear it in the background of plays during Hard Knocks when they're at practice. You can hear him screaming and everything, but like, I don't know. I've never seen Hugh Jackson that fiery during his first couple years here in Cleveland. It just makes me wonder if it's all an act.
Well, maybe it's different this time around, because there's actually thought that they're going to go somewhere. They're not quote unquote tanking anymore, even though that they'll never admit that they were the last 2 years. So I think that there's an actual passion that has kind of been reignited from everything that's gone on this offseason, from the draft to the trades to free agency and everything else. So I really think there's a new momentum with you to be that fiery. Obviously, we don't know if he was like that in Cincinnati and in Oakland. I don't know if we could find that out from anybody else, but I just thought that was one thing that really struck me with you on Hard Knocks, that I'm like, I actually like this kind of Hugh Jackson. So hopefully the team doesn't bring it out of him too much, but he might need to be that kind of Hugh from now on. Let's talk about some of the news regarding the Browns. I think we're gonna respect what happened with Josh Gordon and his child custody thing, child support hearing. I don't think we're going to talk too much about that. That happened today. So if you really want to read upon that, you could search it out for yourselves. The Browns have brought in Dez Bryant for a visit today. They brought in Jonathan Hankins, I think it was yesterday. But ultimately, on the defensive line, they ended up signing Blaine Woodson, UDFA out of Delaware. What do you think about them bringing in Blaine Woodson from Delaware and not signing Jonathan Hankins?
Well, I think there's something going on with Hankins that, teams obviously know, but the media doesn't, because Hankins is 26 years old. He's one of the best free agents available, but he has not signed with a team, and he's had interest ever since he got cut from the Colts back in March. It makes you wonder if he's in good shape, if there's a contract dispute between his representation and teams. Don't really know because nothing's been reported. But obviously he came in with a group of defensive linemen yesterday for a workout that included Blaine Woodson, and the Browns chose to give Woodson a chance over signing Hankins, who I think would be an immediate help. So hopefully there's be some clarity with that soon as to why they didn't sign him. But with Woodson, he's an intriguing prospect. Like you said, undrafted out of Delaware, was with the 49ers earlier this offseason. They cut him right before camp started. Niners Nation of SB Nation, which was one of the only few reports on him that I could find, they described him as a buff ninja. He's 6'2", 280 pounds, can play defensive end and defensive tackle, which is also why I think the Browns chose to sign him over Hankins. Hankins is more of a run stopper, which is what the Browns had with Danny Shelton before they traded him to New England. I think they like these versatile defensive linemen like Myles Garrett, like Emmanuel Ogbah, like Chris Smith, who they picked up this offseason from Cincinnati, guys that can play outside on the defensive end, but also kick inside and play D tackle for some plays. Niners Nation also said that he can sit at, this is a scouting report describing Woodson, he can sit at the block and let the lineman have his way, and when the runner comes by, the lineman is on his back, and Woodson has the runner in a bear hug, and then a quarterback can run away and then come back the other way, and Woodson's all of a sudden there. So I've watched a small piece of film on Woodson that he had uploaded on YouTube. I like what I seen in the small 5-minute clip, but obviously the Browns have had some injuries in camp so far with Coley And with Brantley, Coley's still out with the high ankle sprain, so it's obvious that the Browns needed depth, and they're going to give Woodson a chance, and he might be one of these undrafted guys that makes it onto the 53-man roster. We'll see how it goes.
Is there anyone on that defensive line that you could see not being, obviously besides Woodson? Is there anyone that's on there now out of the main guys and not just a camp body like Coley, like Meter, not being on this team come roster cut down?
I think Coley will make it just because I don't think they would cut him while he's sitting out with an injury. Meter, I think, would be the most likely name on that list, especially if Woodson comes out and really produces for the Browns over these next 3 preseason games. Although I'm not sure if he'll actually play tomorrow against Buffalo, just because it's unknown if he'll be ready. But if he produces, I could see him making the team, and then the team's left with a decision: do they cut Caleb Brantley? Do they cut Jamie Meter? Obviously after the initial 53-man roster, there's the big waiver wire, so they might find another defensive tackle. They might look to bring in Hankins right before the season starts, or another tackle that they brought in for a workout, or they might trade for one. You never know. I mean, it's going to be really interesting when they do these final cut downs, who stays and who goes, because like always, I think we could be in for a big surprise.
We have the second preseason game going on tomorrow night, on Friday night. What are your expectations for that game against the Buffalo Bills?
Obviously, the starters are going to definitely play a lot more. Wouldn't be surprised if Taylor and the offense plays well into the second quarter. Maybe they play the entire first half. Honestly, what I want to see is a continuation of what they did last week, moving the ball down the field, going no huddle again, because that seemed like it really was working for them. And obviously Todd Haley ran a lot of no huddle in Pittsburgh, so we're going to see that plenty here in Cleveland. I want to see the running game step up and have a better performance, give Hyde and Duke and the ball more to see what they can do, and obviously continue to work with Nick Chubb. He struggled in that first preseason game. Granted, it was behind a poor offensive line, but it didn't seem like he was very quick off the snap, and seemed like he was very hesitant to run the ball. I want to see him work harder and show that drive and determination to be what it takes to be a running back. But other than that, just want to see continuation of progress with Baker Mayfield. Obviously, he had a great performance last week. Want to see him build on that and continue to show why he was the number 1 pick and why he deserved to be the number 1 pick.
The thing I'm really looking at tomorrow night is to see if Callaway can build on his performance from last week. We talked about it earlier with him staying out of trouble and stuff like that. So if he can put together 2 good performances in a row, I think it'll go a long way for him to continue to build that kind of success, and maybe help him realize that he doesn't need all that other stuff, and if he doesn't do all that other stuff, he could be successful on the football field. So that's really what I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. I agree with you. I'm also looking at the running game. But like I said, I'm really looking forward to see if Callaway can continue to step it up or not. I purposely left this to the end to see if we heard anything by the time we were done with the podcast. I waited to talk about Dez Bryant until the end because, we do these podcasts and then 30 minutes later after we're done recording, some news will actually happen. So that's why I purposely waited until, we were 30 minutes into this episode to talk about Dez. But obviously we haven't heard anything yet. What we do know is he visited the Browns today. He's in the facility at Berea. He stopped by the radio show really quick and said that he loves the city. So is this something that's going to happen? Should we prepare for it to happen? Do you think it's going to happen? And are you in favor of them signing Dez Bryant?
I think it's something that we should prepare for. The fact that his agent's in town, according to Mary Kay Cabot, would lead me to believe that, the two sides really want to get something done. Dez Bryant, I'm open to it. Like we said last week on the episode with Jared, You know, we all know Dez Bryant's talented, but he is entering the backside of his career, obviously. He's 29, hasn't had a 1,000-yard season since 2014, has fought through injuries, and, what I'm most concerned about, and Jake Burns brought this up on Twitter during the day Thursday, is Dez Bryant going to come in and expect to get the same amount of targets he got in Dallas? Or is he coming in with the understanding that he's definitely not going to get as many targets, and that is he willing to be the second or third man behind Jarvis Landry and Josh Gordon, not to mention the fact that you have David Njoku, you have Antonio Callaway, you have Duke Johnson, who are all going to take targets away as well. Is he willing to come in and help be part of the resurgence of the Browns? If he is, that's great. If not, hopefully the Browns set up the contract the right way, that if he starts to act like an idiot like he has in the past, that the Browns can get out of it and send him on his way. I'm open to bringing Dez Bryant in. I think, with his talent, he can help some of these young guys on the field. Just off the field, I hope he acts like a professional, doesn't act like an idiot. Am I asking for too much? Probably, just because we know what Dez Bryant's been. But I am completely open to him coming to Cleveland, and I think in the end, he would be a great addition to this Browns offense that already has a ton of weapons, and adding him would just be another great get.
You can never have too many weapons at your disposal when it comes to wide receivers and running backs and tight ends. So I think that bringing in Dez is a good idea, but like you said, only if it's kind of like you said, with the understanding of he's here to play his part. If that's 5-10 targets a game, that's it could be even less than that. I was listening to the radio on the way home, and they had Steve Tasker on from CBS talking to Bull and Fox, and he was saying how maybe sign him to a contract to where it's highly incentivized, but if like you said, if things go south, the Browns have a way out of it, and they can cut to the losses, and they don't think twice about it, because it's not going to be a huge burden to them to cut Dez. And so I'm all for it if that's the case. I guess we'll find out probably about half hour from now, because that's how it usually goes with us and you and I recording and when news breaks. So I guess we'll find out here in a little bit of what the actual deal is, if it's going to happen. Is there anything else you want to discuss before we get on out of here?
Nope, we covered everything.
Then go ahead and plug everything.
As always, you can check out my website, thenorthcoastsports.com, for all the latest on Cleveland sports. You can follow me on Twitter at jmccurrycle, and check out the other podcasts that myself and Anthony do, the North Coast Sportscast. We haven't recorded one in the last couple of weeks. We'll get back on that soon, definitely. And you could find that on all podcast platforms, and also follow the podcast on Twitter at NC Sportscast.
As always, you can follow this show on Twitter and on Facebook at 85 Gridiron. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Anthony Joki, Joki. You can find this podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, and the Overcast apps on your smartphone. We would definitely appreciate it if you would subscribe to our podcast and leave us a nice rating. We would absolutely appreciate that. Jack, I think we got through a whole episode here, and neither one of us screwed up. I think we hit a perfect episode, 4 episodes into this new season.
And it only took us like 64 episodes total to not do that.
Yeah, well, this is 65, so it took us 65.
Whatever you say.
I don't know if you want to count that as a screw up or not. Not knowing how many episodes that we've done so far, but I won't count it. So we actually made it through, no errors. I guess you give yourself a pat on the back for that one. We'll be back, I don't know, maybe Saturday morning to talk about the game, maybe early next week. We haven't just talked about it yet. We will here soon. But as always, as we get on out of here, I'll leave you all with this, and that is, go Browns.